कभी करती हैं मुलाकातें, कभी करती हैं मुलाकातें, कभी यादों में बरसातें, किताबें करती हैं बातें, किताबें करती हैं बातें। मन की गहरी झील में कूद जाती हैं कभी, सोच के दरिया के संग संग बहती जाती हैं कभी। चाहे शाम हो या हो रातें, किताबें करती हैं बातें।
Welcome to Kitabnama Books and Beyond. Today we have a very distinguished panel. We have with us Kishwar Desai, a very prominent writer of contemporary stories, and we have Lord Meghnad Desai, a very eminent economist and a prolific writer. We'll start with you. Darling Ji, a book on Nargis. It is something which immediately brings back an old world, an era which is forgotten and not often remembered. Tell us about your book.
Well, actually, it's a book on Nargis and Sunil Dutt, because it started off, you're quite right, it started off as being a book on Nargis. But as I began the research, my husband and I actually started the research together. At that point, we realized very quickly that you couldn't tell her story without telling the story of Sunil Dutt, because you know they had such a wonderful life together, which was very intimately, of course, connected with cinema. They met on the sets of a film, as very dramatically, during a fire in which he rescued her. So everything about them, their lives together were like Bollywood, and that's how I got inspired to sort of put him in the middle as well. And yes, it is a book which deals with how cinema actually started, because Nargis's mother, Jadanbai, was a very prominent and extremely influential woman who not only was a singer herself, but she also wrote scripts, she was a producer, she was a director, and then of course she nurtured a whole lot of people in her home in Chateau Marine in Bombay. So the book deals with the beginnings of cinema, and then brings it right up to the present day with, of course, Sanju, their son, and looks at what was the latter part of their lives. It also deals with politics.
That is wonderful. I mean, politics and 50s, of course, there's a relationship, 50s and politics. In fact, that would be my question to you, sir, because you look at a time when Bombay cinema and the era of Nehru is inextricably connected. So tell us about your book and Dilip Kumar, of course.
You know, I have always taken the view that Indian cinema, Hindi cinema, is deeply connected with the story of story of India. It always tells the story of India. So I wanted to show that Dilip Kumar's films, particularly, were much more intimately connected with Nehruvian politics, quite consciously, because he chose his roles very consciously, and he often shaped them. He shaped the screenplay that he was given. So I was trying to trace how, through those years, first of all, India had just become independent, things were hard, and then hope arrives. When people, the heroes become more dynamic, more fighting, and a film like Naya Daur was all about how rural development was happening. You know, people were changing, and then by the end of the 50s, there is a film like Ganga Jamuna, in which this man becomes a bandit because of the injustices he faces. Also, being a Nehruvian film, there is no kindness shown to the guilty person. He has to die because he has to face the law. And it's a very good juxtaposition of how there are legitimate grounds for unhappiness with the world as it is, but ultimately there is justice in the system. And even if you're a hero, you have to, march along the path of justice. And finally, he made the film Leader, which is an explicitly Nehruvian film, in which he laments for the rise of the right wing and fall of Nehruvian ideals. And so I think he was very consciously trying to mirror what was happening in the 1950s, and early 1960s in Indian politics. And that was, that story has more or less continued, but no subsequent actor has done it that intimately as Dilip Kumar did.
So would you say Dilip Kumar is also the first icon in terms of a hero who's at the interstices of urban and rural?
Saigal was known because he could sing songs, but Dilip Kumar did every kind of Indian. He did the rural sort of peasant type, he did the urban person, he did the urban rich, the urban poor, and once he acted as a trade union activist in Paigam, and also he acted in sort of historical like Mughal-e-Azam. But there's a whole gamut in which, at least as I was growing up at that time, our ideal of what an Indian male should be derived very much from what Dilip Kumar was doing. And he was always clean, he was always honest, he was never, Raj Kapoor and Devanand always sort of slightly on the wrong side of the law, the charming in roles. Dilip Kumar never did a charming role. He once or twice did something in which he was guilty, like in Footpath, he's a black marketeer. And in Amar, which is the most difficult film, he was the rapist. And people just couldn't understand. People could not understand Dilip Kumar doing anything wrong. Because we have all fixed in our mind that Dilip Kumar was the ideal kind of behavior that we had to follow. So he was very influential in that form.
Right. In fact, going to icons, what about Nargis herself is a figure we constantly sort of put in reverence today.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
The woman in white.
Yeah.
I think as she was memorably known, and in fact Raj Kapoor, created that whole persona around her. I think she was a very interesting person, because given her own background, where she comes from, her mother, of course, was this, as I said, became this great patron of Indian cinema, even though when she started, she had a huge struggle because, she was a songstress, and then she had to break into acting at the age of 30. This is Jadanbai, we're talking about Nargis's mother. So, Nargis had from an early age seen that struggle, and her mother had put her in front of the camera from the age of 5, so Nargis was acting. It was something which she actually didn't enjoy very much, and she was to write about that in her later years. I was very fortunate that, I had access to the letters, diaries, lots of interviews were possible for me during the writing of this book, and also the articles that she herself had sometimes written about. She wrote beautifully, by the way. She did not manage to go to college, and she barely scraped, finished school. But she was highly literate. She used to read a lot. So she was an unusual actress, but she did not enjoy the whole business of not being able to give enough attention to her schooling. It was a regret she always had. But her iconic figure, I think, came more from the dignity with which she maintained all, her entire life. No matter what she was going through, all the ups and downs that we saw her, actually experiencing. Because she was a child of cinema, you can say, because her mother was an actress and she grew up in that entire household. She was able, her life could not be led in privacy. People were always talking about her, what is the new role that she has got, because she was a very fine actress as well. It was probably in her genes, she from of her first film that she played as an adult, Takdeer, she was a hit. She was actually playing, she was only about 14 years old herself, but she was playing against Motilal, who was much, much older. He was almost 30 at that time. So a very mature, seasoned actor, and there she is, this young girl, and she does a superb job. And then again with Ashok Kumar, opposite him in Humayun, and then of course the films that she was to do with Raj Kapoor as well. She played a huge role in setting up the RK studio. They were like equal partners. They were very supportive of each other's careers. And then of course the big role which really made her and how we remember her is Mother India. Mother India was such a fabulous film. It had everything in it, and you might know it was a remake of an earlier film called Aurat, and then Mehboob thought that he would remake this with Nargis. It came in a very difficult time in her life. So, this is why this woman is truly iconic.
तू मुझे नहीं मार सकती। तू मेरी माँ है। मैं एक औरत हूँ। मैं तेरा बेटा हूँ। रूपा सारे गांव की बेटी है। वो मेरी लाज है। बिरजू, मैं बेटा दे सकती हूँ, लाज नहीं दे सकती.
And then, of course, it is during that period that she meets Sunil Dutt. So I think Nargis was iconic and remains iconic till today for very many reasons. One is, I think she was a truly fine actress. You could see her in any persona. She could play, you know, the enchanting rural belle, and she could be, the next minute she would be this very vivacious and very urbane woman, you know.
Right,
And so all those things, she, like in Andaz and so on. So she was able to do all that and get our affection at the same time. Post cinema, I think another very wonderful thing happens is how well she takes to family life, and we see her in a different phase. You know, she's a devoted mother. The work she does for the Spastic Society of India, and you know, you have to remember that this was much before. Now we see, you know, actors and actresses doing charity and, you know, things like that. But those days were very unusual. She's a very very modern woman, you know, in many ways. And then she's persuaded to join politics. Then again the dignity with which she faces her cancer, and you know, and of course Sanjay Dutt's drug addiction and things. So I think she is iconic because not only what she was in front of us on screen, but also what was happening to her behind the screen. And I think when I was writing this book, I was like completely, I still get goosebumps, you know, when I kind of, you know, think about this, because she was such an amazing person. You were just kind of, you know, enchanting in so many ways. And her husband was extremely supportive. You know, he started off as this very Punjabi macho guy, you know, he was like, you know, very do's and don'ts. And the daughters still say that, you know, that dad would tell us, don't do this, you can't go out, wear only salwar kameez, you know, that kind of thing. But he was immensely supportive. So as a team, they were really wonderful.
The story of Dilip Kumar is also the story of India in that sense, which is what you sort of, you give a cultural biography.
Sure.
And when we were talking about Mother India, I think another film is Naya Daur. So tell us more about the experience of sort of collating it and putting it together as a cultural biography.
I think what's really amazing thing about Naya Daur is that, I mean, it was the story was around. Rajendra Singh Bedi wrote the story was around. And it was thought to be poison. They said, don't touch this story, it's terrible. Nobody. Naya Daur was a film because of this sort of battle between man and machine. Because he's a Tangawala, his livelihood is about to be threatened by a bus coming to the town. And so what to do? So instead of despairing, he gets people's cooperation, villagers' cooperation, to build a shortcut. So it was like community development, rural road building, all that was in. But it was all done with songs and things like that. And we used to have serious discussions among ourselves as to whether this was, did we actually agree that man could beat machine? Were we not betraying modernization of India? Did Nehruji want us to build more machinery and things like that? So we were discussing that film as a serious take on Indian development policy and inequalities in, you know, sort of forums and so on. So it was a film in which you kind of got the transformation of not so much very small village India, but mid-sized, because there's a railway station nearby. You know, so there are Tangawalas and things like that. So it is sort of a very small town India transforming itself, development, visiting that. But all the people are involved. And the man who is going for the bus is not really a villain. He says, I'm a modernizer, sort of thing. You know. The idea was, what is modernization? Should it be just in terms of machinery, or should it be in the interest of the people whom you're trying to benefit? Now, to do all that in a film, and this is about 1956, 57, and almost the height of Nehru's powers, and the height of, you know, whole optimism about planning, and second five-year plan had just come out and so on. It was a very, very dramatic film for him. And of course, it had fantastic music by O.P. Nair, there's Vajantimala and Johnny Walker, and all sorts of emotional entertainment sort of elements were there. And that's why Naya Daur is, even now if you look at it, it's an amazing film.
Right. In fact, you referred to music, and again 50s cinema. It's a very interesting.
Absolutely. Well, in the late 40s, music dominated the plot. If you had good music, nobody cared about the plot. There was a film called Anokha Pyar in which Dilip Kumar, Nargis and Nalini Jayawardene were there. Fantastic music by Anil Biswas. Absolutely terrible story. Nobody cared. Not properly scripted. And then Naushad, of course, gave great music. But then you began to have films in which story and music went together. Andaz is one thing. And then later on, of course, Nayadar, Open a Year. Guru Dutt was a pioneer in that. Guru Dutt used music in all his films as a device for storytelling. So music becomes a very pulsating part of the plot. And, I think I still believe, okay, it's my own prejudice, that the 1950s music is the best music you've ever had in Hindi cinema. Absolutely amazing music.
Also, another thing, I would imagine the problem of being of writing a biography, because you have to deal with a lot of material.
This was actually a very secular story of India,
Yeah.
because Nargis came from a Muslim background, but then when I researched, I found that actually her grandmother was actually a Hindu who converted to Islam, and then her mother, of course, remained a Muslim. But when Nargis got married to Sunil Dutt, there is a moment, when she converts back to Hinduism. So, this very easy, and they celebrate all festivals in their family,
But,
whether it's
sorry to interrupt, but Nargis's father was a Hindu who had converted to Islam to marry Jadan Bhai.
Right.
And then you have somebody like Sunil Dutt, who comes from what is now called Pakistan, but of course he came from that Jhelum district. He comes from a very different background. He comes from a landowning background, very patriarchal, as I said, but then he becomes a victim of partition. He never forgot that moment. That moment was very, very, it was almost imbued in his character. Even when he used to send his CVs out, he used to always say, I was a refugee from Pakistan. Religion is never an issue with them. They have other issues, like all young people have, different issues about when they should get married, where the family, whether she should work after, and she was very keen, by the way, to give up her career. She wanted to always, her dream was just to have a house, as she said, with red roofs and, and children within. So their issues was never over religion. And I find this was fascinating. They had her brothers, of course, were also there. They were resistant to the idea of her marrying and giving up what was a very lucrative career, but they never objected to his religion as such. So I think that story is something we should really celebrate much more. These are the secular stories of India. When you talk about secularism, it's always oh, you're a pseudo secular, you're a this, you're a that, but these are the real life stories which are very important and which have in a way shaped us, because we have seen the way how the family has always been there for us. And when I was writing this book, I was very, very happy that these two individuals had found each other, because they were truly in love and able to overcome these things which a lot of people still haven't done. And I also would like to add that Indian cinema, we do not appreciate it enough, but it is possibly the most secular industry which is operating in the country today, where you have very many people from all religions. We should remember that, and we should really give them credit where it's due. And Nargis's family had a very important role in all of that.
Same with Dilip Kumar.
The remarkable thing about Dilip Kumar, it occurred to me, was he only played one Muslim role in his entire career, and that was when he played Salim. And nobody noticed it. In Ganga Jamuna, when the hero dies, it's a very iconic moment. He dies in a temple. A temple, and there are bells going on, and somebody reciting the Gayatri, and he's dying, and he's almost a ideal Hindu death if you had to die being shot. And it never occurred to any of us that this one was a Muslim playing a Hindu, because he was just Dilip Kumar, and he was the most familiar person for us. And I don't know whether it was conscious or not, but actually, there were not that many great Muslim roles in Indian cinema anyway, leading role. One could go out of one's way and make one, but Indian cinema had taken the view
Right.
that they were not going to take part in this secularism communism debate. They were Indian, and as Indian, they will always do what was truly Indian, and that meant you never looked at the religious divide for entertainment. And I think it's and throughout his career, all the way, even when he sort of gets his more senior roles, Kranti and Karma and that, he's always a patriotic person, sort of playing sort of, somebody to guard the country, to defend the country, fight for the country. And so he is almost never negative, and almost positive, and a very nationalist Indian sort of person. And it is done without being didactic about it.
Right. Yeah.
It is done always for entertainment. That's what I find is unique about Hindi cinema, that most of it was always in the business of entertaining people, making money. You did not have any kind of grounds to make films which nobody saw. They had to make films that people had to see. And that is what is the most remarkable thing about Hindi cinema to this day.
So tell us about your new work on Pakiza, which is like
Yes, well,
the film, I guess.
Pakistan is exactly the other side of cinema, because there is a category called the Muslim social.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there are some great examples of that. Chaudhry Ka Chand being one of the greatest Muslim social that there is. But there's also the idea of Lucknow.
Right.
All these films take place in Lucknow, and I have sort of a theory, as it were, that the Lucknow in which these films are placed is not the actual place. It is placed in the Muslim imagination.
Right.
Because that was the climax
The idea
of a certain great culture, civilization, with the tehzeeb and the whole good manners, and the open love of pleasure, and sort of music and dance and all that. And in that, Pakiza is a film which talks about that particular time. It is sort of somewhat modern because there are railway trains in it.
Yeah.
But apart from railway trains, there is very little that is sort of contemporary or modern in it. And it's all done in a way so that it has this ephemeral quality.
Right.
Like you say, if I touch it, it will dissolve. So it's like a dreamlike quality, and the way Kamal Amrohi was able to sustain that is quite remarkable. And of course, through the shooting, halfway through, they split up. Meena Kumari and Kamal Amrohi split up. Her health goes to ruins, and then she comes back and says, "Whatever happens, I'm going to finish this film." And it's quite remarkable that they did it. And one of the things I discovered was that he rewrote the entire story for the final stage, made it a double role and all that, so that he could use the previous stuff, but sort of put in. That way, he was a very great screenplay writer. Pakiza is as much about Kamal Amrohi as about Meena Kumari.
Thank you so much for this fantastic session.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Kishwar
Thank
Desai. Thank you, Lord Meghnath Desai. We'll be back soon. Thank you.
नरोत्तम की आवाज़ अब भी भारी थी, पर होठों पर एक हल्की मुस्कान थी। तिवारी उसकी मुस्कुराहट से झुलस गया। जा ये फाइल मिश्रा जी को दे आ, जल्दी। नरोत्तम ने फाइल मेज़ पर फेंक दी। बीच में मत अटक जाना। यस सर। नहीं, मतलब नो सर। वह झुंझला गया। आप बताइए सर, मैं क्या कभी काम में देरी करता हूँ? तिवारी का यह ज़रूरत से ज़्यादा खुशामदी स्वर था। तिवारी खुद भी हैरान हुआ कि यह उसके भीतर से क्या निकल रहा है। यह कौन उसके भीतर से बोल रहा है? वह इस नीच के आगे क्यों घिघिया रहा है? कमरे से बाहर निकलते हुए उसका अपने झुके हुए कंधों पर ध्यान गया। उसने कमर कसी, रीढ़ सीधी की और भरसक छाती को बाहर निकाला। वह असिस्टेंट जनरल मैनेजर राममूर्ति मिश्रा के कमरे में घुस गया। सर। मिश्रा अपने काम में डूबा हुआ था और उसका ध्यान भी नहीं पड़ा कि कब राम नारायण अंदर आ गया। तिवारी की आवाज़ सुनकर उसने नज़रें उठाने की जगह पूरी गर्दन उठाई, जैसे चश्मा लगाने वालों को अक्सर पूरी गर्दन उठाकर देखना पड़ता है। फाइल, तिवारी ने फाइल मेज़ पर रख दी। उसकी आवाज़ उदास थी और वह चाहता था मिश्रा उसका नोटिस लें, इसलिए उसने चेहरा भी दुखी बना लिया। कोई और काम? मिश्रा ने बेरुखी से पूछा और लिखना शुरू कर दिया। साहब काम क्या, कलयुग आ गया है, ब्राह्मणों को नीचों के झूठे बर्तन धोने पड़ रहे हैं। तिवारी ने मिश्रा को उकसाने की कोशिश की। तो नौकरी छोड़ दो, किसी डॉक्टर ने बताया है कि यहाँ काम करो, जाओ गांव में भीख मांग कर खाओ। मिश्रा की इस करारी आवाज़ से वह सहम गया। नहीं सर, मेरा कहने का मतलब यह नहीं था, मतलब जहाँ आप जैसे विद्वान ब्राह्मण का बैठना तय हो, वहाँ एक नीच जात कोटे से आकर हम पर हुक्म चलाए तो क्या खराब नहीं लगेगा? तिवारी ने एक बार फिर दांव खेला और मिश्रा के चेहरे पर चित्त के भाव उभरे। मिश्रा ने हूँ कहकर खुद को संभाल तो लिया, पर पेन मेज पर रख दिया। उसका मन उचट गया। वह थोड़ी देर पहले वाली तल्लीन तक हो गई। उस शाम आपसे कैसे बदतमीजी से बोला था, फाइलों को आपकी तरफ फेंक दिया था नीच ने। मिश्रा के मुरझाए मनोभावों को पकड़ लिया तिवारी ने। अब यह सब तो होना ही है। मिश्रा की आवाज़ में मायूसी से ज़्यादा मजबूरी थी। पुराना घाव कसक गया। कल का लौंडा हमारे सिर पर बैठ गया, MBA किया है तो क्या हमारे सर पर मूतेगा? हम 20 साल में कलम घिसते घिसते यहाँ तक पहुँचे। मेरी बेटी से साल 1.5 साल बड़ा है, बस कोटा नहीं होता तो क्या यहाँ तक पहुँच सकता था? मिश्रा ने लंबी सांस भरी। घमंड बहुत है सर उसमें, ऐसे तो कभी बात ही नहीं करता, पूरा दिन चुपचाप बैठा रहता है, कभी की भी तो 7वें आसमान से बोलता है। तिवारी की आवाज़ सुलग रही थी। आपको पता है वह 3rd डिवीज़न है। तिवारी ने आवाज़ धीमी की, जैसे कोई राज की बात बता रहा हो। हाँ मुझे पता है। मिश्रा का स्वर अब भी उदास था। उसे वह दिन याद आया जब नरोत्तम ने अपने MBA के संघर्ष के बारे में बताया था। 3rd डिवीज़न होने के दंश के बावजूद वह रात दिन पढ़ाई में लगा रहा और पहली ही कोशिश में MBA में पहुंच गया। जब जागो तब सवेरा, नरोत्तम ने यही मंत्र बनाया था। अरे साहब कमीना है साला। तिवारी का भड़ास निकालते निकालते और हौसला बढ़ गया। अब तू जा। मिश्रा की आवाज़ एकाएक सख्त हो गई। उसकी सख्ती ने तिवारी को उसकी औकात समझाई। तिवारी अपनी गलती समझ गया और मुड़कर जाने लगा। दोगला, इसीलिए तो जात बाहर किया हुआ है ऐसे गांव में। तिवारी बाहर आकर मिश्रा को गालियां बकने लगा।